kind of an amazing 48 hours. I'm always amazed at how things just kind of flow and come together. I mean, I knew what I was going to say today, and I wasn't, and just resources just kind of kept flowing into my life. So you'll hear some of that today as we go along. Even today's daily word mapped perfectly to what it is I was going to talk about. We've gone through Lent talking about what scientists call the four-box model, how our understanding of the world is shaped, how we cognitively make sense of the world around us. This is just how the brain works. It's the mechanics. That we form a conclusion and we gather evidence that supports the conclusion, discarding everything that doesn't match the conclusion. And then that conclusion and the evidence then determine our behavior. We act as though it's true, and that influences the behavior of others, but also it influences how we interpret the behavior of others. And guess what? Our interpretation of the behavior of others always reinforces our conclusion. The neurologists say, well, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. You know, maybe our ancestors wouldn't have lived real long if they'd have walked outside the cave looking for evidence that the saber-toothed tiger didn't exist. Maybe they have a point. And so we talked about, you know, in this time of Lent, this time of examining where we are in life, this time to shed those things that no longer work for us and to allow a newness of life to spring up within us. What are some of these conclusions that go unchallenged in our mind, the conclusions to which we're largely unconscious? And so the first week we talked, what's our conclusions about God? And what evidence do we search for in our life and in our environment to support that conclusion? What's our conclusion about life? Life is hard. Life's a struggle. Life is joyful creativity. What are our conclusions? And where do we give our evidence? And what evidence do we discard? Today it starts to get even more personal, more down home. What's your conclusion about other people? Are they all jerks? Are they all selfish? Is everybody just out for themselves, seeking their own benefit in one form or fashion, however they might describe that? Are people basically selfish or basically loving? Here's one even more insidious. Is everybody wounded? Or are people essentially whole? Are people essentially evil or essentially good? Are people out to get us? Is radical Islam this century's Nazism? Is the other a threat or an opportunity? Who do I label as other? Who do I stand apart from and see as fundamentally different? Where are those holier-than-thou moments in my life when I look at somebody and thank God I've grown past that. Oh, I'm so glad I'm not like them. Sister Bertha, would you pray for me about Frank? He is just such a mess. He's so haggard and stressed. And poor Frank, he just can't get his life together. No, I'm so worried about him. Will you pray for him? Join with me in prayer and just know that, Frank's going to stop drinking and he's going to stop beating his wife And he's going to turn his life around. And he's going to hear that voice of truth within him. And what have we just done? Convince Bertha that Frank's a wife beater, an alcoholic, and hopelessly insane. And do we know any of that to be true, or is that our projection? How many ways, even in trying to be nice, how many ways, even in a warped sense of love and concern for another person, do we paint an image that may not be factual? How many ways in conversation with one another do we taint their reality of another human being? In ways subtle and not so subtle, we reinforce the idea that we're separate constantly and continually, that we're different, that we're apart from and not a part of. In ways simple and profound, we make the universe outside of ourselves. And nowhere is that more damaging. Nowhere does it cause more pain than when we do it with other people. What you hold in your hand is a tool to help you break that. And this week, as you go through life, paying attention to your conclusions and your evidence about other people, the people in your life, I hope that you'll remember to pull this out and take a look at it. Before you start running your list of shoulds and have to, your list of judgments and diagnoses, your psychoanalytical tools. The first line here, number 1. The person that I'm engaged with right now and right in this moment, this person is a hero. This person is whole and complete, just as they are. This asks you to consider seriously the idea that life is the hero's journey. That it takes a great deal of stamina and fortitude, takes a great deal of effort to live. That our coming here, our incarnating in this body and bouncing around this earth was a deliberate act of courage. There is an old tale, and I tried to find it this week, and I couldn't. I don't even remember who wrote it, which is probably why I couldn't find it. I'm going through book after book after book till I'm making myself dizzy. But it's the parable about, God talking to somebody that was wanting to come to earth. And God says, well, you understand you're going to have a body, and you understand there'll be times you might get sick, and you're going to bruise yourself. And you understand that people are going to be difficult, and they're going to challenge you. They could hurt your feelings. And, goes through all of this, and by the end of it, you're going, God, who would want to sign up for that, Just to be here. Just to say yes to this journey. That the person you're dealing with is just like you. They see no farther in front of them than their next step. As a hero, on the hero's journey, you have no idea of the obstacles that that person has been through to get to this moment. What monsters have they slain? When have they